Perfect. Now I saw in the chat there that Joseph, when he heard that,
Look at
when
that
Carrie
hair.
complimented my hair, complimented my hair, which was a shock to me, Joseph wrote in the chat, "Are you sure he wasn't referring to my hair?"
Yeah.
So, Joseph Bramante is a collaborator on this book, a very good friend, a phenomenal investor in multifamily real estate. He's got a company here in Houston, very successful real estate multifamily investing firm. And Joseph, when he read the book almost a year ago, and I'm not exaggerating the story, he showed up at my front doorstep. He said, "Hey," and he would not let me take no for an answer. He's like, "Hey, can I come by and see you?" I was like, "Well, I'm kind of just hanging out tonight." He push. He's like, "I'm coming by." He shows up at my front doorstep with a gift box and a card. And inside the gift box, he had printed an entire copy of my manuscript. He had written me a letter saying how impactful it was for him and how proud he was as a friend that I'd written my first book. And then line by line, he had made his comments through the entire manuscript, like what he liked, what he didn't like, where I had spelling mistakes. And then came to my front doorstep in my house and said, here's this gift box and this card. And I remember I was overwhelmed. I remember telling Brooke, like, Joseph just showed up with basically a hand-edited manuscript. And that's the kind of friend Joseph is.
I want to be your friend, Joseph.
Yeah.
Well,
so he has some intimate knowledge of this book, and he, yeah. Joseph, please introduce yourself and tell the audience all about you.
I'm Joseph. I'm Ali's friend. That's all you need to know.
Very good friend.
I do multifamily. I've been doing it for like 10 years. I'm an engineer, work for Exxon, so I'm very like detail oriented. And so that's my lovely comments I gave to Ali. It's all love. And I met Ali in 2014. 15?
Probably 8 years ago, 6, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
And it's been a while. And we've just been friends ever since. And so I've always kind of known him personally. And then the last couple of years, we've started to do more professional stuff together. And so for me, this book was like my first kind of, I never really knew what he did until I read the book. And I was like, oh, like, that's what you do. And so I just, I think I don't know, maybe I don't want to characterize everybody out there, but I feel like a lot of what this is a black box to a lot of people who don't know. And, my background was corporate America, and I launched my business in 2013. So it was very much, just kind of figuring out, like all entrepreneurs are like, you're just lucky to keep this thing going and create your business. The last thing you're trying to figure out how to do is like how to properly plan for an exit and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So when you say that, Joseph, when you say it was a black box, do you mean like when you hear the terms like wealth and life planning, like what do you actually do there? It just sounds like it's all the same. Are you referring to kind of the concept of when you hear wealth and what we do, or elaborate on what you mean by
like
when you read the book, you actually realize what it is that we do?
Yeah. So my background is corporate America, right? So I had an Edward Jones guy, and I had I had a life insurance policy, and I had my 401k, and like that was it. Like
checklist items, right?
Yeah, like that's all I knew. And I was like, if I'm doing that, I'm okay. And so this like was a whole nother level that I wasn't even aware of or knew of, or how it really all kind of came together and worked together. And that's why I gave you that comment there that, this is like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because in the real estate world, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a eye-opening book for a lot of people in our space. Mm-hmm. And this is like the rich business owner, poor business owner book, because, a lot of people can be business owners, but if you want to take it to that next level and do it correctly and really plan for it how you're supposed to, I mean, that really sets you apart from the other business owners who, unfortunately, I mean, I know of several instances of other real estate people who've grown very large portfolios and have not done the correct steps. And now, unfortunately, it looks like their company is just dissolving. They're just selling everything, and it's, anyway, so I feel like, having read this book and you can, they didn't take some of these steps to have those next plans in place, or it was too late because it was obviously you could see them trying to maneuver and make changes. But at that point, it's like, dude, you're like 75 years old, man. Like all these things had to have been in place way, way before. Yeah. I think that's just, some people you just don't know. You don't know when. And for me also, like I'm 36. So some of these conversations, I'm not even like mental maturity wise, like ready to even have. I'm like, I don't really want to talk about some of this stuff.
It was honestly new to me as well. I mean, you're so like on fire all the time as an entrepreneur, fixing the next problem, making the next hire, trying to build the next system or operation, and you're growing quickly. And then whatever worked before doesn't work at this level. So to think so many steps ahead, you'd have to have a mentor or a guide, to your point, Ollie, that says this is the way. But entrepreneurs don't really have a good mentor or a good model for that. And when I was reading the book about when you did, Joseph, about a year ago, it was so well written and it was like easy for me to understand, because this could have been the world's most complicated book that you would have lost me on page 7, but I could read the whole thing and I understood the structure and it felt possible somehow. Right. And
and it's super engaging. I was telling Ali this morning, like I was just like trying to skim it last night to remind myself of everything that was in it. And I kept getting sucked into the pages and I was like, Michelle's like, what are you doing? I'm like, sorry. It's like, come on, you got to flip through these faster. And it was because like every page has like so many good nuggets on it. You're like, it was great. So I think,
that means a lot. It sounds like there was a kind of a lens to what might come next for you. Like one, there was a paradigm shift on the whole rich dad, poor dad, but then there's a whole section where it's like, here's what's going to come in the next 20 years that you hadn't even thought about or may not have even fully processed yet.
Well, and I also thought, I had this view of like, oh, that's for like big companies. That's not for like me, like I'm like this small business owner guy, like that's for those people over there. But after like reading through this, I'm like, no, like this actually applies to me. And I think that was one of the great things about it, was that a lot of this is very universal. Like everybody should have this in place. And a lot of times, as small business owners, we're just trying to keep food on the table. And you just you get so, it can almost be a trap, right? Because you work so hard and you just keep going, and you never take a moment to be like, okay, maybe take a step back and let me do some preservation and do some actual strategic planning about what it is that I've just spent 5 to 10 years building. You can't just build and never kind of put a fence around what you got.
Yeah, Joseph, I'm really glad you said that. And it's profound, because so many business owners, we spend the majority of our time in build, grow. And sometimes we don't realize, and I know myself, I sometimes don't realize this because I'm in the jar, so to speak, and I can't always read the label. And many business owners, I'm the one that's outside the jar and I can read the label. But if you just spent more time planning your success, sometimes that's actually worth more than just growing it. Does that make sense? Like sometimes we're so focused on, well, I know this activity drives a new client or a new opportunity or a new deal, and I've got to do it. So I'll drop anything to do that. But you reach a point with your success where there's a point when planning your success can be worth more than just growing it. You actually get to capture it, because most entrepreneurs write it up, don't make a plan, and they write it down, or their children do, or it's taxed, or there's not that intentional plan put in place. And I think it's profound what you said. You've got to have a plan for it. Thank you.
And I think you remind me of something that you actually said on something recently. You were talking about building a business is like climbing a mountain, And, you know, like 80% of the injuries don't actually happen when you're building the business. They happen when you're on your way down the mountain because you're relaxed, you're not paying attention, you're whatever, you're just so focused on growth. You get to the top and you think like that's it and you check out and then you end up having an accident or getting hurt on the way down. So I think I just remember when you said that, I was like, man, that was really deep. So
I appreciate you remembering that. I actually mentioned it at the beginning of today's live stream as well. It seems like that's the analogy that really gets business owners to put a framework around their journey. Because I think myself included, for many years, I always assumed the goal is to get to the summit, is to get to the top of the mountain. And I have learned many, many times over this past decade or two that it's not. The goal is really coming back down the mountain safely. And that requires you to plan for the second half of the journey. And the goal of this book, it really and truly is to help empower business owners to capture their life's work, realize their life's work, and plan for the journey down the mountain as well as the journey up, you know, both sides of it. So I really appreciate that, Joseph. And I'm very grateful for your collaboration and input on the book. For those of you that aren't familiar with Joseph's work, I'd love to take a quick, can I highlight you for a second, Joseph?
Go for it.
So Joseph owns a company. He's an owner founder of a business called Triarch, and they do multifamily real estate investing in Texas, primarily in Houston, but I know you've got some properties and projects outside as well. And he is this is the way I describe Joseph to people that are curious about him, or, hey, what do you know about Joseph Bramante? Or they're looking. Joseph is one of the most entrepreneurial yet extremely analytical, OCD, spreadsheet-minded business owners I've ever met. Like, if you want someone that can analyze the deepest analytics and technical stuff, but is still an entrepreneurial visionary that will like not get lost in the detail, but go execute upon it. Like, first time I saw his real estate pro forma, I was like, wow, this guy, like, did someone else do this? And then he's like, no, I build this and I now teach courses on how to build it and how to do it the right. So Joseph has a unique ability of being a visionary and also being this incredible analytical mind.
Very rare.
It's very rare, and it's kind of how we nerd out sometimes together.
Love it.
We both kind of have a dorky side to us with the technical and then the entrepreneurial side as well. So that's my my mention for Joseph there. Definitely
Joseph.
check out his company and his work.
Yeah, I'm sure they're putting the links in the chat below. And then Joseph, of course, you're welcome to come back and then comment and engage on the chat thread, because there are probably people asking about you or wanting to get to know you a little bit better. We encourage that. Really appreciate you being here.
Well, great. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm really excited for the lives that you're going to change with your book. I think it's from the business owners, and in general, maybe you'll encourage people to get into some ownership, but I think it's just going to be profound, the impact it's going to have on the community.
I love it, Joe. And I'm forever going to appreciate this line of yours. This book is the rich dad, poor dad of entrepreneurial wealth.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That means a lot. It was a great line.